Hello, my name is Linda Scott from Esquimalt MFRC, and I'm going to be providing an overview of the new Road to Mental Readiness Workshop, Phase 5, Supporting Children with Reunion and Reintegration. So please see the facilitator manual for more details about preparation, presentation, and resources. This workshop blends together materials from Kids Have Stress Too, a program of the Psychology Foundation of Canada, with R2MR, so that families can all use the same language in building resilience. The Supporting Children with Deployment workshop complements the Adult Road to Mental Readiness workshop. So as you go through the 18 slides with participants, it's not necessary to read all the words on all the slides. You can highlight one or two key points in each slide, summarize or paraphrase. So to illustrate, you could say for the first one, I hope that you'll gain an understanding of deployment from the perspective of each family member and tools you can use during the reunion. And to get participants engaged from the beginning, ask them to introduce themselves and the age of their children, and what do you want to make sure that we cover? And just write their responses on a flip chart. The cycle of deployment. This slide helps participants gain awareness of their own emotions and that of the other parent and children, and how each influences the other and how they can support one another. Some parents might be familiar with this slide from Phase 3, and I should have mentioned that, you know, find out from the beginning when you're doing that first exercise with people, you know, how many people have taken R2MR before, how many people came to the Phase 3, so that you get a sense of your audience, your participants, and what their understanding is of the concepts you're going to be presenting. So go through the cycle and talk about how far participants have come over the past few months. If you're working with a group that has more of an in and out, short deployments that might be 3 weeks and in and out deployments, talk about the spiral of deployment and the challenges that come from those frequent changes. Right now, families are in the anticipation phase of the reunion process and soon moving into homecoming. The deployment's nearly over, and their child's thoughts might, you know, certainly turn to the parent returning home, but they'll have a roller coaster of emotions, which can be a bit overwhelming for children. It's generally a happy time. Preparing for Reunion, Part 1. It's called Part 1 because there are actually two parts to this that are both interactive. And this is the preparation phase as you prepare for the reunion. It gets participants interacting early and helps them gain an understanding of their child's perspective. You can say, take a moment to talk with the person beside you about what's happening for your child right now, something you're comfortable with sharing. Give the group about 5 minutes to talk with each other and ask them if they'd like to share a few comments. And you could note a few of these on the flip chart to post on the wall. Highlight some age differences or individual differences. And state that during the workshop we'll be talking about reactions to the reunion and reintegration and strategies to help the child's and parents' experience be eased. Acknowledge any special circumstances that come up, a child with extra support needs, or some big change that may have happened during the deployment, perhaps a child that has difficulty adjusting to change. In this slide, you can review the mental health continuum or explain it, again, depending on your group. Check to see whether people are familiar with it, and hand out the fold-out copies of R2MR. You know, if they do have them, they probably don't have them with them, and it can be a good reminder. Say that you're going to be applying it to parents and children. And if people did do this exercise and remember it from Phase 3, Ask them what they've learned during the deployment or how it worked for them applying it. That can be a good basis for your workshop. Parents know what behaviors are typical for their child's age and temperament. To learn to manage stress, we need to be able to recognize the feelings and behaviors that we have when we're stressed. They're cues that let us know we need to change what we're doing. So if you're in the yellow phase, a child might be having difficulty following routines. It might be really hard to get the child to bed. They're so excited about the homecoming. The parent at this point, after a long deployment, might be feeling overwhelmed, and they don't even feel like following through with a routine. Break the participants into groups again and ask, what does it look like for your child and for you when you're in these phases of the continuum? Use the flip charts to create lists. In the debrief, look for descriptors of feelings and behavior and help to place them along the range using colored pens on a whiteboard or flip chart, or again, having people stand up and stand along a mental health continuum along the floor. The stress stoplight. The stress stoplight is reviewed, again, for people that are familiar with it, but also introduced for anyone who's new to the concept. It's a child-friendly tool that parents can use with their children, and the colors correspond to the mental health continuum. So at this point, you could bring along the pieces of, circles cut out in green and yellow and red, and people can make their own stoplight. Just take a few minutes during the class, or you can give them to them to take home, and they can make them with their child. Parents can use the stress stoplight in a similar way as the continuum to show children and help them recognize how they're feeling in a relation to a color. I'm feeling green today. Things are pretty good. Or I'm feeling yellow. I need to change something to feel better. If the returning parent isn't familiar with the stoplight, he or she could be encouraged to join in and use the same language as they go through the reintegration phase together. The 4 tools. This section draws another parallel to R2MR training to help families all use the same tools. Check with participants to see whether they've been using these strategies. If not, you'll need to spend a bit more time on the review. And you can see the Phase 3 workshop for some examples and of the 4 areas. But as you go through this slide with participants, show the parallel to the R2MR briefing with the big 4 tools: goal setting, visualization, self-talk and negative self-talk, and deep breathing. Children can learn to use these strategies to relieve stress. And imagine the difference if a child starts using these when they're just very young. And you do see children certainly doing things like take a breath. And parents will often use that with children when a child's upset, like, okay, take a breath. And the parents will then feel comfortable with using these kinds of strategies. Strategies for staying green. Again, you'll either be introducing it or reviewing it, but this activity is a key part of the workshop. It helps to show how family members affect each other when they're in the green or the yellow, bringing together the images of the mental health continuum and the stress stoplight. Give an example as you show how the green of the stoplight intersects with the green of the mental health continuum. You might, for example, say, you know you're all in the green when you're happily sharing ideas for what you'll do in the days following the reunion. You might be planning activities, a day at the beach or in the park, and that would help you to know that you're all in the green right now. This activity helps to normalize typical feelings that parents and children have when they're in the yellow, and it also supports strategies that participants can use and helps them know when they need to get support. Again, in this phase 5, you're going to take some time for individual self-reflection, give participants a handout, and they'll identify their own strategies. And then ask for a few, if people are willing to share, to put on the whiteboard or the flip charts. For example, when you're feeling stressed, take a moment for yourself and breathe. Step outside and breathe the fresh air. If you have a baby, make sure your baby's safe and put the crying baby in the crib for a minute and just stand on at the entrance of the doorway and breathe the fresh night air, and it might help you to feel that you can calm yourself. All parents experience moments that are challenging. It's important to have a range of strategies to try. Preventative strategies like getting enough sleep the night before reunion, and in-the-moment strategies for the day of the reunion and the days that follow. As you start going through the individual age groups, refer to the initial check-in with the group. What are the ages of the children with this group? Does it cover all ages? Or did you find out that it's mostly preschool and school age? You can tailor the next 5 slides to your group. With each slide, offer an example that came up through the group or an example you can provide. For example, when you're talking about infants, you might say, use job shadowing to help for the returning parent to job shadow the parent who's at home and reconnect through daily routines. If your group represents all ages, invite participants to recall what it was like for them when their children were younger, or anticipate what it might be like for them when they're growing up in a military family. When you break into discussion groups later, families can support each other in sharing strategies that have worked for them. And the slides on different age groups help provide insight into what their friends might be experiencing right now. We can better support each other when we have a greater understanding. Toddlers. The activity level of toddlers is nonstop action. The returning parent is not used to the noise and activity level of family life, and the parent at home is likely looking forward to sharing parenting again. For example, maybe you've been showing photos and videos of the deployed parent, or you've been talking on Skype. The toddler might still be taken aback when they see the parent in person. The toddler might watch the returning parent intently. And finally, have a big smile of recognition. Give the toddler time to make the connection. Be warm, but do not loom in too close. Preschoolers. Preschoolers may become overwhelmed with strong feelings at the time of the reunion. The returning parent can help them manage by playing an active game outside when they get home, help to use up some of that energy. Encourage a positive behavior. Expect success and let go of the small stuff. School age. You can give an example like the deployed parent may have given their child some responsibilities before they left. Maybe they asked them to take the garbage out, and they might proudly show the returning parent the empty garbage can. The parent could feel puzzled, but then remember it's a big deal for your child. Offer thanks to them for following through. You're helping your child at this time to develop a sense of competence. Teens. The deployed parent can help to open the conversation with a teen by sharing their own experiences. Teens are interested in the world around them. Talk about what it was like to see other cultures, or if you were deployed on the other side of the country or in a different, mission in a field. What was that like? What did that feel like? Pick a time that's comfortable for the teen and show that you're ready to listen when they're ready to talk. For example, when you're one-to-one, just the two of you driving in the car. Parenting as a team. Parenting as a team is the heart of this workshop. Parents join in parenting together again, and that will take time. It'll take a lot of patience, communication, and loving support to each other in their parenting roles. Take some time to talk with the group and provide examples to help parents think about their parenting style and their parents and their partner's parenting style. So you can ask, has the at-home parent style changed during the deployment? If the parent at home was more permissive about some things and the parent away had strict rules, for example, bedtime, has their style changed to include things now that they're now more strict about? How can you and your partner work together and support each other in parenting? What's the difference between chiming in, so all of a sudden there are two parents looming over the child saying, it's time to clean up your room, or offering support to the other parent, maybe talking to the other parent later and saying why you step back and let them handle that situation and that you support them in following through with the child. And how could parents undermine each other? Discuss these topics with the group and ask for examples to illustrate. You hand out an individual worksheet at this point, parenting as a team, and the parent goes through it to think about if there are any new rules and what ways are they similar and different than the other parent. Parents are often, there's one area that they might be more permissive about or have more strict rules about, and another area that it doesn't bother them. They're easy about noise level, for example. Help them to work out what these are, because these will be the sticking points when they get back together again. Preparing for reunion, part 2. Again, you're going to have a group activity here, and take 10 or 15 minutes with the group and give them a chance to talk about what was the best thing about this deployment. Help them to develop lists of things that went really well during the deployment, because they may be worried right now about how the reunion's going to go. So generating a lot of ideas about the great things that happened during the deployment can be something that they can use to build on to see their strengths when they're addressing the concerns. But you also want to bring out what the concerns are. And then at the end, review the key points and debrief. Reintegration. When you talk with the parents at this point, you say, your child has grown, faced challenges, and may have discovered new interests or made new friends. Your child might be more independent now. The returning parent may also have changed because of challenges or opportunities during the deployment, and the parent at home has changed as well. You all have to change your usual routines when you get back together. These adjustments need to be renegotiated as you settle back in. It's important to be patient, to take time and share with each other your experiences, and think about how it's going to affect your life together. Your child needs. Read through each of these points slowly. This is like a summary slide for the whole workshop. Recap the key points and refer to the group's input. Point to the flip charts all around the room now, or the whiteboard. Reinforce that they've generated the information and they are prepared for the reunion and reintegration. Resources for support. As you go through the resources for support, again, mention any special circumstances that might have come up. during the workshop and offer to talk with people after the workshop if they'd prefer, or encourage them to connect with each other. Bring along a lot of community resources to put out on display, and also let them know about any of your special programs and services that might be coming up through the MFRC. Thank you.